All right, we are live. It is Friday, and today we have three special guests who are going to be in the studio with us on this live broadcast. We have Ben, Chris, and Aaron Dorr, the Dorr brothers, as they are probably most known. They've been very active in local politics and state politics for decades at this point. They've received death threats. They've received political violence as they've sought to try to remain and contain some semblance of the America that we used to know and love that we have rapidly lost over the years. So they're going to be in the studio with us today. We're going to be talking about their story, some of their testimony as they have been faithful Christians in politics, fighting the good fight for decades now. And then in addition to that, in our second segment, we're going to be questioning and interviewing, asking particular questions, practical questions about how Christian men who want to make a difference in the realm of local and state politics can do so effectively. And then in our final third segment, we're going to be taking questions from you. So if you are watching this broadcast live and you have questions, make sure that you get them in and get them in early. We'll deal with questions as best we can with an order of priority and which ones come first, but we always will prioritize the super chats above all the questions. So if you'd like to help financially support this ministry and get your question answered, get it to the top of the pile, then you can send a question in a super chat and we will deal with that at the top of the third segment. So this is the episode dealing with local politics, how to crush our enemies, not mercy, but crush them with justice. And to do so, just for YouTube and everybody who says to do so politically. When I say crush our enemies, I am speaking of politically crushing our enemies in a way that is legal and most importantly, a way that is biblical and that brings glory to God, and it also defends the innocent. Remember, you cannot properly, biblically love without hating anything and everything that threatens that which you love. If you love sheep, you must hate wolves. You cannot be nice to wolves without hating sheep, right? The lost virtue of Christian hatred. David says in the Psalms, do I not hate those who hate you? Yes, I hate them with a perfect hatred. All right, so we're going to be talking about crushing, not being nice, but crushing our enemies. Disclaimer, politically, how to do this practically, locally, and effectively. That's the episode. Tune in now. All right. So we are back for practical, technical reasons. We did not have enough seats, nor did we have enough microphones for Wesley Todd to be able to join us in this discussion. But we're going to be meeting up with him later tonight and some of the men of our local church. If you're looking for a good church in Central Texas, you can check us out, covenantbible.org, covenantbible.org. We're north of Austin, and our church is politically active. And so tonight we're going to be meeting with all the men in our church. The Dorr brothers are going to be there. They're going to be doing a presentation and Q&A and all those kinds of things. And so Wes, we've sent him ahead as our ambassador to prepare the way for that meeting in person with men tonight. But for now, I'm going to be the host, and we have Ben, Chris, and Aaron Dorr. And let's start with this. Can you guys just introduce yourselves, but more importantly, feel free to take this whole first segment. It gives you about 20 to 30 minutes. I want to hear your testimony. I want to hear your story, what you've done in politics, the threats along the way, why it matters, the victories that the Lord in his sovereignty has granted to you. Tell us the story.
Yeah. Well, I'll cover the origin story. We got going in politics, especially with gun politics in Iowa, raised in a Christian home, very politically active, and we were looking for a way to get more involved in state politics, have a bigger impact. And our county sheriff at the time simply said, I don't like your politics. I don't like your last name. And so I'm not going to give you a permit. And he literally had that discretion. I walked out of the office. I called Chris and I was seething. And I was like, I'm not sure how, but we're going to change the law here in Iowa. And looking back now, God certainly ordained that sheriff to be a tyrant. And I don't think he had any idea what he was going to set forward.
The monster he would create.
Yeah. And from there, we launched our first gun rights organization in Iowa. And we had Democrat controlled everything, governor's mansion, House, Senate. We had Republicans sponsoring gun control bills. And we spent Well, I said the last 18, 19 years now, and with that organization, reshaping the entire state. And we used the Second Amendment issue and the power that had at election time to not only pass all the gun bills we ever wanted to get passed in Iowa, but to totally reshape the trajectory of Iowa.
Wow.
Yeah, and we started way before that. I mean, we're from a big. By big, I mean big in terms of numbers. There's 11 of us.
Door kids.
The Door family.
There's 11 Door kids?
11 Door kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
Door siblings.
Yeah, Aaron is the oldest. Chris is second oldest, and I am the middle child. So there's
Swing.
5 older than me and 5 younger. And we grew up doing a lot of kind of the traditional political activism. You stand in front of an abortion clinic, hold the sign. Right. Try to talk girls out of going inside. We dropped a lot of churches growing up about wicked things that were going on in our specific area, trying to get them, which I don't know if you know this, but it's hard to get the church to actually take a stand for anything. And so this was just an extension of that, was we just got older. And, then these kinds of things happened. And after passing all of those pro-gun bills in Iowa, we basically discovered that we're actually really good at this. And because with this comes a lot of pressure, there comes a lot of hate from both sides of the aisle, from all the media. And we were able and have been able to withstand that pressure for a long time. And we said, you know what? Why don't we expand? We'll go to another state. We can pass gun laws there. We can stop bad laws from being passed, because groups like the NRA, they've been weak, they've been soft. They helped pass a lot of the gun control bills early on, especially, and then in the not too distant past. And so the era of the NRA kind of dominating things has started to rapidly die off as people have woken up to the fact that they're not actually fighting for anything. So there was a huge call for people to stand up, fight back. Anybody have the actual spine to push against some of this legislation, and that's kind of how it morphed, I think, from Iowa to
yeah. And we found out very early on that when you have organizations like the NRA that are hoovering up massive amounts of money out of Republican-dominated states like Ohio or Indiana or Iowa now. Yeah. A lot of people send in their money and they think, oh, these are the people that are fighting for me. But we found very early on that we can focus at the state level in these state legislatures, and we can be devastatingly effective. And so that's why we started organizations like Ohio Gun Owners and Pennsylvania Firearms Association, a whole myriad of them, because nobody's paying attention to the states. And there's vast amounts of rights for rock solid Reformed Christians just jump in there and mobilize the people and take them back.
Well, the left is concentrating on the states. So you hop on Emily's list on Facebook, and you'll see them say things like, "The fight is at the state level. Here's where we can elect, Democrat women. Here's where we can push all these different things." They understand that, well, if we can't beat Trump in D.C. right now, we can just run the algorithm, so to speak, necessary to decide which state to concentrate on. And then the left is target focused on a lot of the same states we are focused on. They're trying very hard to move it to the left. You have Moms Demand Action, all the far left, socialist, communist groups. They're all doing the same thing we're doing, except we're trying to push it all to the right. So the left understands, the right often does not understand that the fights and most of the laws that you live under are coming straight from your state legislature. Exactly. Your state representative is showing up at your local Eggs and Issues, forum. They're walking through your local parade. They're coming to your county fair, and you have a chance to really put the pressure on your state representative or your state senator way more than you can, at the federal level.
The right understands principles. The left understands power. But I feel like the right has to understand both. I've said this before, but a lot of people online, the James Lindsays of the world, incurable libtards, yes. Who ultimately, at the end of the day, hate the Lord Jesus Christ and should have never been partnered with. Really, just an indictment to the church. James Lindsay in 2020, he actually was one of the better guys. He really was. He has fallen far since then, but he was one of the better guys. But not really, in hindsight, not because he was great, but because the church sucked. It was, he looked, like a giant by comparison, but that's because the church was, all of the pastors were marching with BLM, but exactly. The point is, James Lindsay is, fond of comparing, politics and, to like the Lord of the Rings and things like that, and he'll say like, well, you can't use the ring of power. It needs to be, it needs to be taken back to the fires of Mordor and unmade. But it's so silly when you just stop for 1 second and think of the comparison. They're comparing, number one, a fictional fantasy. I appreciate Tolkien as much as the next guy, but it's a fantasy book. It's a fictional book for kids, and they're comparing the ring of power to the divinely instituted entity of the state. Right? Romans 13, the book of Romans is not a fantasy. It's not a fictional story. The book of Romans is the God-breathed, inerrant scripture. It's infallible. And God makes it very clear that the state was his idea, that there's going to be a civil magistrate. It's not whether but which. There's going to be a civil magistrate. And it is his duty to wield the sword. It is his duty to wield power. So the solution is not to abdicate power, because power is somehow inherently a vice. James posted something recently where he said, is power, a virtue or a vice? And I responded and said, it's neither a virtue or a vice. It's a vehicle to which you can promote virtue or vice. So power is inescapable. There is no vacuum. We don't live in a hypothetical. We live in a real world that God actually made. There is a natural hierarchy that exists, whether we think it's icky or not. There's going to be a hierarchy. And within that hierarchy, there will be people who wield power. And so ultimately the impetus for Christians is not to abdicate power, but that power should be wielded righteously. It needs to be wielded righteously. So yes, we want to keep our principles on the right, but we need to have principles and power as a vehicle for promoting these virtuous principles. And for too long, the right has been beautiful losers, principled losers, right? Because we think power is icky, and we have to stop doing that.
One of the biggest mistakes that we've seen a lot from, I think, in this camp, besides your point that someone's going to wield power, is too many times the Christians are convinced that we cannot move forward until everybody agrees.
Right.
Well, there's a consensus amongst every single crazy left-wing lunatic on this committee or in this state house or the state senate, and half of our job is to remind even some of our friendlies, like, you have the reins, let's drive, let's go. And like you said, Ben, we live most, especially underneath the laws of our state. And so that's half the battle sometimes, is to remind these people that you have the power given to you by God, and we don't have to convince every crazy person out there that what's right and wrong. We're going to move forward. We're going to get this done.
Also, I would add to that anybody who phrases political power as essentially, the ring of power, like if you touch it, you're going to be corrupted. It also shows that they've never been in the political arena, because a lot of because it kind of elevates the politicians and the political class and these caucus leaders as some kind of political geniuses or super gods. But when you get up close to these people, a lot of them are actually idiots. Who have ascended through the ranks, or maybe they have a couple of skills here and there, or maybe they had the right funding access. But these people are not superhuman. They're not super smart. They just control the levers of power.
Right.
Yeah. There's usually a handful of smart people in any sort of caucus.
Yes.
And a whole bunch of actually low IQ lemmings who are doing whatever it is that leadership tells them to do. So when Aaron's talking about, everybody looks for consensus, we operate from the standpoint of, we don't actually care if you agree with us or not, as long as you push the right button. And you might not want to push the right button, right? You might hate us viscerally,
which is often the case.
Which is often the case. But if we had $1 for every legislator who pushed the button that we told them to push, even though they hated us viscerally, we'd be wealthy, because it happens all the time. It's political pressure. So a couple of people agree with us in the legislature. Most people don't want to vote our direction on a lot of stuff. But when you apply pressure properly, they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. It's either that, or they might lose their seats. It's either that, or they're going to lose their primary coming up in 2 years or 4 years. So people always say we got to change the hearts and minds of the legislature. No. Oftentimes, you just have to force them to do something they don't want to do.
We've never walked into a state capitol with a pocket constitution trying to teach somebody about the Second Amendment.
Right.
It's just very simple. You're going to vote this way, or you're going to get a primary, or you're going to get a general election opponent, and we're going to spend real money using real tools in your race, and you have a good chance of losing your seat. Never really tried to convince. I mean, teaching people about what the bill does is one thing, but we're not trying to save their soul. They're elected. Their soul is not necessarily our concern. Vote the right way. That's the main.
We're not pastors.
That's the main deal.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really, really important. Yeah, a lot of times, I've been talking about this within the larger scope of Christian nationalism, and there's some guys who are like, yeah, okay, Christian nationalism, I guess that, that might be biblically permissible, maybe, still don't really like it, sounds icky, but maybe it's permissible. But, the only way we could ever have Christian nationalism is if God first sends a spiritual revival, and we have 50% of the country plus one that's born again and genuinely regenerate. Whereas, I respond to that and say, look, in my duties as a husband and a father and as a pastor, and even just as an individual Christian man and seeking to do the work of an evangelist and fulfilling the Great Commission, in all those various occupations, I am praying towards and working towards on a daily basis a spiritual revival. Politically speaking, a spiritual revival is not a prerequisite for exercising just righteous political power. We actually don't need to have, it's not a requirement to have half of the country saved, or over half the country saved in a true eternal sense before we can have righteous policies. And I think of, biblically speaking, the Old Covenant and various times within Israel's history that you would have kings and, like a Josiah would come into the kingship, and you're coming on the heels of 2 or 3, bad kings, 2 or 3 generations of wicked laws, wicked rules, idolatry, the Asherah poles, the high places, Baal, all these different things. And the majority of the people of Israel at the time were adulterous. And there would even be prophets that God would send to speak to Israel and describe them as an adulterous people. Not just saying there's 2 or 3 of you that are adulterous. No, saying on the whole, right? There were probably some righteous people, but on the whole, in a general sense, the majority of Israel, in terms of their hearts, spiritually speaking, the spiritual reality of the majority of Israel at that given moment was not faithful, but rather faithless. Not righteous, but adulterous. And nonetheless, God would raise up a king, and also in the book of Judges, raise up a judge or whatever it is, some kind of political leader. There would be a political leader, and he would come in and he would say, you know what, your hearts aren't changed yet? That's totally fine. We're going to grind the idols into dust anyways. Yep. And the people's hearts eventually would follow, right? So we always talk about, as Christians, especially within the Reformed tradition, we always talk about the reality, and it is a biblical reality, that God changes people's hearts, and then our actions and our speech and behaviors are an outflow of what God has done inwardly, right? So the outward behavior ultimately stems from an inward transformation. That's absolutely true. But there's also something to be said for the inward being shaped by the outward. There are so many cases that I've dealt with pastorally where a husband and wife are struggling in the relationship. There's turmoil, there's hostility in the marriage, and the intimacy and love for one another has just grown cold. And so you're sitting there, you're counseling them, and yes, you're preaching the gospel, you're preaching to the heart. But in addition to that, you also give practical counsel and say, hey, I am asking you as your pastor, I'm commending to you, counseling you, that as we are praying and seeking the Lord to do an inward work of the heart, that in the meantime, that we don't just sit back on our haunches, but we are diligent and getting busy in our actions before the heart change comes. So here are some practical actions of love that I want to see you begin regularly implementing in your marriage to one another. Whether date night, husband, once a week on Fridays, coming home with flowers, turn off the cell phone in the evening and actually look at each other and be able to have a conversation and do this and do that. And lo and behold, right? And people are like, I can't believe this made a difference. Lo and behold, you start performing the actions of love, and you will eventually start feeling the feelings, the emotions of love. The heart, like an engine, it fuels the hands, the feet, the mouth. Your behaviors and your speech. So the heart, like an engine, can fuel certain actions and speech. But likewise, certain actions and speech and those habits and patterns can ultimately change the heart, right? Even somebody who is an alcoholic and they're like, I love to be drunk. I love it. Well, after a certain period, at first, it's really hard. They're forcing themselves to do in their behaviors something that they don't actually want in terms of their desires. But after so many days go by, and the days turn to weeks, and the weeks turn to months, eventually it actually gets to a place where it's like, no, I actually don't want this. And in that sense, I actually profoundly disagree with organizations like AA. I think there's some good practical advice, but the basic premise I disagree with. I don't believe that. I don't believe the premise that that a person, that their heart, that their nature and disposition can never be changed by God. Right. That the God of alcohol is more powerful than the Lord Jesus Christ. I don't think that somebody who has not touched a drop of alcohol for 20 years should still be publicly saying, my name is so-and-so, and I'm an alcoholic. I worship the God of alcohol. No, you're a born-again Christian. You haven't touched it for 20 years. The power of sin, not just the penalty's been paid, but Jesus also broke the power of sin, and you're free. And it's your actions over this long period of time that actually led towards a heart change. So my point is just to say it's not a one-way stream, it's a two-way street. God changes the heart and it changes the actions of the people. Right. But also God can appoint leaders, political leaders like kings and princes, and they can change by law, by dictate the actions of the people that eventually start to shape the heart. Well, it works both ways.
Well, we've seen this in reverse, right? So when Roe v. Wade was enacted, shall we say? I guess it was not enacted. When the Supreme Court did Roe v. Wade, what were the statistics? 95% of Americans did not agree with abortion being legal.
Right.
It was political power that got it passed. And then over time, people go, "Oh no, this is much more acceptable." We saw the same thing with Obergefell. All of a sudden, no, this should not be the law. This should not be legal. Right. And now it's, actually, like this is pretty normal. This is pretty normal. It's interesting. I just on the flight here, there was a guy in front of me to go through the TSA scanners, and they pulled his bag out.
It's not gay if it's TSA.
That's right. And I turned to him and I said, "Oh, great! Now's the time we get to invade your privacy and dig through all your stuff. Best part of the day, huh?" And I'm kind of like just trying to connect with this guy, and he kind of looks over at me and he goes, "It is what it is." And I thought to myself, when TSA first started rifling through all of your stuff, who went, "It is what it is"? Probably not many people, but we just accept it over time. Right. And that's what's happened. The left has done this to us over and over, and the right refuses to acknowledge that that's what's happened. But if we overturn a lot of these things, if we stop if we push these people back into the closet, the culture will respond in kind.
Right. Yeah. Politics is downstream of culture, and also culture is downstream of politics.
Yes.
It's both. So let's go to our first commercial break, and then we're going to come back. And I want you guys just to, as best you can, give us a few practical tools on how guys can get involved locally in politics and make change.
You bet.
America is a country that was founded for the purpose of allowing Christians to do their duty before God and not to have their consciences ruled by the doctrines and commandments of men. Reece Fund exists in order to see the 10 Commandments properly applied, not just as a plaque on the wall, but to actually be used in business as though they're commandments from God that we're supposed to obey. Our goal is to find businesses and to buy them and to build them up. We want to find manufacturing businesses and use them to make sure that we can maintain our capacity to do things here. Reece Fund, Christian capital, boldly deployed.
The silver is mine, and the gold is mine, declares the Lord of hosts. Yet your retirement dollars keep shrinking daily as Washington prints money out of thin air. Genesis Gold Group aligns financial guidance with godly principles when others serve only profit. Their faith-centered approach to Gold IRAs stands apart in an industry that has forgotten what true stewardship actually means. Why gamble your family's future on Wall Street's paper promises? Your 401k and IRA deserve better protection. Genesis Gold Group transforms your vulnerable retirement accounts into physical gold, something real, something tangible, something that God created with inherent value. Their faith-driven experts walk you through every step, helping you shield your life's work from the financial storms up ahead. No high-pressure tactics, no hidden fees, just guidance rooted in timeless principles of sound stewardship. So the decision is simple. Watch your retirement evaporate through inflation, or secure it in God's precious metal. Take action now. Go and visit rightresponseBibleGold.com. You can visit today for your free book, The Bible and Gold, and join the thousands of believers who sleep soundly knowing their future is anchored in something unshakable. Again, that's rightresponseBibleGold.com, safeguarding your legacy with God's timeless treasure. All right, we're so back. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the practical tools, practical actions that guys, Christian men can do locally to be effective in politics.
Go for it, Aaron.
Well, the main thing is the mindset, first of all. You can't, good intentions are great, and having a desire is great, but it actually takes tangible things to be effective in politics. And we've passed constitutional carry in 5 states now.
Yeah, a bunch.
Stand your ground law in 4 or 5 states. Big gun bills, and none of that happened because we wanted it to happen. We had to spend real time and real money to develop great big lists of people. You need to have people to put pressure on the politicians. So whether that's direct mail, whether that's email, whether it's social media, you have to have large numbers of people to bring to bear to actually scare the politicians. And of course, lists mean you have to have money. You have to be able to raise money a little bit to get those tools assembled to be effective in politics. And so it's important as you begin this to have the right mindset that you can't wish it into happening. There are every state capital has great activists. We know them in all the states that we work in.
Yeah.
They're good people. They're godly people. They have a big heart for the Lord. They have no respect because nobody is afraid of them in the state capitol. And again, to your point, not physically, but no one's afraid of them politically. They can't hurt anybody in a primary. They can't cause any pain in a general election. And so I think the main thing to have is from the beginning is the mindset. And you have to have tangible tools to be effective. Lists, money, and people. Huge part of that.
One of the main things you have got to do is recognize that virtually every single politician you talk to is going to tell you, they're going to read you, they're going to read what you want, right? If you come walking up with 8 kids, they're going to go, homeschool family, and they're going to go, what does a homeschool family want? And so if you stand there and say, we want you to do X, Y, and Z, that person is going to immediately tailor the thing that they're saying to you to the person they're speaking to. And so if they sense, or if you tell them that you are a strong, evangelical Christian, let's just say, then they're going to tell you about how much they love God and how much they enjoy going to church.
They'll pray with you,
and they'll try to get you off of their back that way. But no, let's say you don't just buy it, right? You say, well, I hear you saying you're a Christian, but you need to really hold the line on this thing. Most every Christian eventually caves to the, brother, would you pray with me? Would you? It's so tough up here. You wouldn't even believe. I need God's help, and would you come into my prayer closet with me and pray over me? Christians virtually never are able to see past that because we as Christians would not fake that kind of thing.
Right.
You would never pretend to want someone to pray for you. We would never do, and so people assume my good nature equals their good nature. And you have to realize that most politicians are not good-natured. They're reading you, and you need to be able to look past even that and go, hey, look, I will pray for you. Also, you must not vote for this bill. If you do, I'm going to make sure all of my friends, my family, my church know about this. There is no scenario where you vote for this piece of abortion funding or where you vote for this thing over here where you get off scot-free just because you're telling us that you're a Christian. And most 999 out of 1,000 Christians are not capable of seeing when their legislator is kind of blowing smoke, so to speak. And so going back to Aaron's conversation here about mindset, you have to get real. You want them to do something for you, or rather, you want them to do the right thing. And you have to recognize that there's 50 other lobbyists, an entire caucus structure, all the money, all the things, they're all lined up behind them saying, no, you are going to vote for this. Mm-hmm. And so you have to recognize that you're fighting against all of that pressure. And going back to what we're talking about here, the list, money, and people, you have to build out infrastructure to put pressure on them yourself. But you've got to be able to look through the smoke screen that is fake
Piety.
fake piety.
Yep.
We can just like use one of our states as an example here. When we first started Ohio Gun Owners in 2016, I moved my family out there to start this organization. All it was $25, a couple of us, and a bad attitude. And we wanted to pass constitutional carry, the idea that you don't have to beg for a government license to carry a firearm to defend yourself or your family. And we moved there. We started this organization literally from nothing, and we started doing large amounts of direct mail into the state. I recruited a bill sponsor, a very good Christian man. He's now passed on to the Lord about 3 months ago. His name was Ron Hood, and he agreed to sponsor the bill for us. And he's one of those principled guys in the legislature that knew where we wanted to go, but he was willing to take the arrows in the meantime, because there's the other groups out there, NRA, the Buckeyes Firearms Association, these in-state organizations were like, sounds great. It's never going to happen here. We have a rhino establishment. But he was willing to jump up and say, I will sponsor the bill if you guys will partner with me and start developing lists, money, and people. So we started Ohio Gun Owners. We started doing direct mail. We started doing online petitioning. We started lobbying the legislature. And you fast forward a couple of years, and kind of like we were talking earlier about how the left used Roe v. Wade to kind of create this inevitability. By staying at it, by being consistent, by not looking for the easy, quick win, by doing the hard work of developing those lists, money, and people that sometimes takes years, we created this sense of inevitability. Combine that with the political environment of getting it passed across the line in other states, and in the year that there was a huge mass shooting in Dayton, Ohio, when we had a governor of Ohio at the time, his name was Mike DeWine. He's still the governor now. When he came out and said, we're going to pass some gun control in response to this, we had created such a tidal wave of using that list and money and people of political pressure around gun rights that he not only didn't get his gun control passed, but we rammed constitutional carry and stand your ground right down his throat.
He signed him. He signed him.
He signed him into law, and he had no clue.
It was a 16-point gun. Wasn't a 16-point gun control bill he wanted passed.
Yeah.
And he signed constitutional carry and stand your ground.
Yeah, and he had
instead.
no idea that these reformed, theonomic, post-millennial Christians were the ramrods behind it that have mobilized an army all across the state. And that's just one example. That's one state. But that's what it is. It's lists, money, and people. And another thing we got to get rid of in the Christian, on the Christian side of politics is they sit there and they think that money in politics is dirty. Well, if you don't have resources in politics, you're dead. Yep. You're totally dead. So yeah, it kind of boils down to the main three ingredients.
Note, we've already had a few people in the chat, and so now I think is as good as time as any. Some of the people have asked, how can they support what you're doing?
That kind of depends on where they live, doesn't it?
Yeah, we have 18 different state organizations operational right now in the Second Amendment space. So I guess you have to go to the national website, American Firearms Association, and find a state affiliate there. And there's all kinds of affiliates. I saw someone in the chat mention Illinois. We're very active in Illinois. We're involved in litigation right now in Illinois. So we have a lot of state chapters all across the country. And I don't want to get away from that question too far, but I think it's also important for us to mention that, I think people might fixate on the gun issue. We use guns as a means to inflict our Christian worldview on these states. And so if you're not a gun person, that's okay. Insert your issue here. We've used the gun issue because A, we're all big gun people, but B, because it is one of the most wedge issues out there, because it's not just Christians or conservatives who are pro-gun. You have Union Democrats who are pro-gun. You have suburban soccer moms who, in the mostly peaceful protests, all of a sudden decided, hey, I'm pro-gun. And we have used this issue primarily because it's the best wedge issue we could find.
It's lethally. Antifa is pro-gun. Transgenders pro-gun.
Right.
Oh, yeah, there's that too.
Yeah, guns is lethally, politically speaking, for the humor impaired, of course.
Yeah,
guns is lethally effective in Republican primaries. So that's our bread and butter right there. That's when we do our best lobby work.
So your issue is up to you, but also I mentioned too, it's the impact is far greater than just guns. We've used this issue to elect hundreds of Christians into office who actually know what they're there for. And from that, we've legalized deregulated homeschooling, for example, in some states, or we've defunded all of Planned Parenthood in certain states. We've got rid of horrible constitutional amendments in some states. And so the gun issue is the vehicle, but the benefits are far beyond just Second Amendment issue. And that was intentional when we got going in this a long time ago.
Well, if you think about it, so you have some blue-haired lefty, state rep, or some, transvestite, they're out there pushing for the total destruction of the nuclear family,
right?
Total annihilation of Christian culture. They want abortion up to and after. There's death. It's all death all the time. Sin, death all the time. So if that person can lose a seat because of guns or pro-life, perhaps, then what you get out of that is you get a person out of office who is pro-death, wants to destroy Christian culture, and all the other things that you care about. When that person is gone, so was their ability to force their power structure on us. So it's that might be a revelation to some people who are going to watch this video, but it was never about the guns. It was never about the guns. It was about God's law applies. We don't like watching these people destroy our country and destroy the West. We're sick and tired of Christians being apathetic and sitting back and being nicer than Jesus. And so we got into politics the left is inflicting their will upon us every single day. Right. They are doing the work of their father, the devil. They are liars. And we are combating them in this same. It's a spiritual war combined into a total political war. Mm-hmm. And we've been very successful in a lot of places. Yeah.
So when Jim Obergefell ran for the Ohio House of Representatives, and a guy named DJ Swearingen, the Republican, ran against him, it was our royal pleasure to run gun control ads against Obergefell and deny him that level up that he was looking for to get into elected politics. So it's very
nice. Fun. Where can people follow you guys on social media?
You can follow us if you just search the Door Brothers on most channels. You'll find us. I don't know that we have a specific handle across all platforms, but if you wanna support the work we do, go to AmericanFirearmsAssociation.org, and then there is you can either support the AFA, or there is a state affiliates list there with each one of the states that we are working in. If you live in one of those states, feel free to get involved.
Nice. People, names, and money. People, lists, and money, I think, is the three things that you guys have mentioned at this point more than once. Saying that if you want to be successful in politics, you need money, you need people, you need lists. Can you explain a little bit how to get those things and what's significant about, like, how do you then? What's significant about people, money, and lists, and how's that going to be used to get political will accomplished?
Go for it.
Well, there's minutia here, but at the end of the day, we get down in the trenches. We're very active in the trenches in these states to pass or defeat legislation. And so if we have a gun bill we're trying to work on in, say, Missouri, for example, you need lots of people to contact that chairman and those committee members to say, you move the bill forward. And so if I go and talk to all of them individually, I mean, they don't really care if I'm brand new in that state. I have about this much political power. But if we have 20,000 people on an email list or 100,000 people on an email list, if our social media videos are viewed by 250,000 people in the state, well, all of a sudden, and we give out that lawmaker's cell phone number, and we say, text these committee members and tell them to vote yes on this bill, now you've got power. And now it supersedes their version or their thoughts about me, and they have a real problem in their district. And so once you have some power like that, you can begin to inflict real change. And then from there, most of our messaging is geared to the district. And so when they get an email or a text or a phone call, it's coming from their constituent. It's not coming, shotgun style. It's a sniper shot from their district. This has happened so much in Ohio. You had a case here, Chris, a while back where he was in the Capitol in a committee fight, and he calls me. He's in the grind. He's in the trenches. I need a text campaign on this state rep. I need to go in the next 10 minutes or else. And so our whole team, got a big team, great team of folks. We mobilize them and we drop 5,000 texts in this guy's district in about 10 minutes time.
Yeah. And
he changed his voicemail to a pizza company trying to pretend he wasn't the rep in question because that pressure was overwhelming. And so the money feeds the programs and it feeds the campaigns, digital, social media videos, emails, and text that result in that pressure, which a lot of times they find they can't resist it, and they have to vote the right way, not because they like us. Usually it's because they quite in fact hate us, but that's what that money and those tools allow us to do, is to put that much pressure on a guy or gal to make them vote our way, even if they don't want to.
Yeah.
And I guess there's probably a practical side of this question. If I heard you correctly, there's probably a lot of people who are like, how do I go about getting the list? So every part of political engagement is an opportunity really to grow your list. So for example, when we do it on the gun issue, we have a bill sponsored. Well, we're instantly, we're going on Facebook, we're going on social media saying, we've just introduced this bill, sign your petition in support of it here. So we're constantly trying to find people that not just, we don't want just numbers, we want people who agree with us on our issue on those lists so that they are invested in this. So you bring them in that phase, and you bring them all the way through the committee phase.
So you post something real quick, you post something on social media and you're asking, it's like an email sign up kind of thing?
Email signups. Okay. Yeah, you bet. And a lot of times we're going to put money behind that to get it in front of more people. We're targeting audiences, kind of practical things like that. But
like boosting the social media posts?
You bet.
Okay.
Yep. To like lookalike audiences or people who already like our page, similar audiences to that, people who follow the NRA. I mean, there's all kinds of targeting metrics on the backside of social media, but that's like the practical way to start. I mean, if you're going to go back to a more local issue, you go to your local city council, you go to those school board meetings, and you send around clipboards and have people sign up. A lot of this stuff, though, is the nitty gritty, not attractive work that has to be done in order to move the ball. But a big problem that you have in politics at any level is people are looking for the silver bullet. They don't want to pass around the clipboard and go to the work of putting out emails to mobilize people. And but it's effective. The left has always done these things to tremendous effect.
Mm-hmm.
So
right. So I would just say the way we've gone about it is, the organizations that we run are not-for-profits, 501c4 nonprofits, and that's the vehicle with which, and this is very common in politics. It's what everybody's using, either a 501c4 or a 501c3 or a PAC of some kind. Mm-hmm. And so, if depending on what people in the audience want to do, you can create set up a 501c4. And that becomes then the vehicle that you work with. Give it a name, right? American Firearms Association, Minnesota Gun Rights, something like that. And you need, a lot of people go and they ask for some seed money. Maybe a church gives them the first check, $5,000 perhaps. You can use that then to start growing that list that we're talking about. If there's a big issue that's happening in your state, and that people are really fired up about it. After the assassination of Charlie Kirk, people are very much wanting to learn how to do more and get more involved. And you can put petitions in front of them. You can put email signups and say, we are fighting on this issue. If you'd like to support us, or or let your representative know what you think about this by signing here. And that helps create your list. Again, the left is doing it. The right is doing it. Everybody's out there building lists. The government's doing it. Everybody's building a list, right?
Palantir's doing it with facial recognition to make sure that anti-Semites are completely jailed and destroyed. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And then when you get those people on a list, you ask them for money.
Yeah.
You tell them like we're fighting for you. You show them what we're doing. Right now in Minnesota, for example, after what happened with the Annunciation school shooting, and then of course the big catalyst here was the left trying to blame the right for Charlie Kirk. So now they want gun control. And
how did that work out for Jimmy Kimmel?
Yeah, not so good.
Not so
good. And, so gun owners in that particular state are extremely fired up. And so we're doing our job of launching these ads, of launching this mail, these emails, text message campaigns. We're putting massive pressure on the legislature to stop a special session on gun control, which is what Tim Walz is trying to do. And so you just ask the people on your list, please give us money to help pay for the ads that we're trying to run right now. More money equals more ads equals more pressure. And so you kind of got to, so I would say you need to start with a little bit of money in order to build a little list, in order to be able to raise a bit more money to create a larger list. And the bigger, the more pressure you can put on rhinos, depending if you live in a red state, or you can put it on far left Democrats, and you can pressure them to stop bills or advance legislation.
Right.
And if people have more specific questions, feel free to contact us for sure. And we're especially if you're a church, if you're Reformed Christians like us, or even if you're slightly off, that's all right too. Feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to communicate and give more specifics, because of course, we work in red states like Missouri and Ohio. These are deep red states. We work in purple states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. These are purple states. We work in blue states like Illinois, New York, and each strategy is different, right? If you live in a state that is totally dominated, by the Republican Party, you're not going to sit there and go, the Democrats are doing a bad job.
Right,
they don't control any of the power. You have to go after the Republicans who are not outlawing abortion, who are not passing the pro-gun bills, who are not doing their duty, and all the things they promised during the election cycles. They're not doing that. So you need to go after them, because they will still sit there and go, the Democrats are the problem. They're the ones causing all the issues. It's all Ilhan Omar. It's like, she's not even from your state. You guys are the ones with supermajorities pass the bill. So there's definitely different strategies depending on where you live. And we'd be happy to discuss that further as well.
Good. Let me ask a question. So big gun supporter. I used to have dozens of guns, but I lost them in a boating accident recently.
It happens, man.
Better find them.
It's,
Go find them. You're gonna.
it's rough. But that said, I'm curious. You guys being major gun advocates, which I support wholeheartedly. What do you think about transgenders having guns?
Absolutely
I'm curious,
not.
like just like your biblical, because I can understand. Like I'm not trying to trap you. I can understand if it's like, no, it's a constitutional right. If they're a citizen, they can have a gun, but the moment they use it illegally, then it needs to be the death penalty. That might be your answer. Because honestly, like that could be the answer. The answer could be that anybody commits murder, right? Whether they're a transgender or not. But you just start nationally publicizing hangings. Make hangings great again. Praise God.
Right.
And so it could be that simple to where even the transgender is like, well, I am retarded and chemically biologically engineered to kill Christian children in school through literally biochemical engineering to be a ticking time bomb to kill Christian kids. And even despite all that, I just saw 3 people on TV hung this week. And so I'm not going to do that. Might be your answer. And that's fine if it is. I'm just curious. My answer is no, they can't have guns.
Maybe we have 3 different answers here, but I always say that abortion is wrong because it's an assault and it's an attack on the image of God.
Yeah.
I would say that somebody who's a transvestite and steeped in this sin is already attacking the image of God within them. They're homicidal by nature.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
absolutely not. Now, do I think you can create a law that prohibits them from ever accessing those firearms? I don't think so. But should they have them? Absolutely not. They're evil, very evil.
Yeah. Well, we always say we're not in the business of arming our enemies.
Right.
Exactly.
Right? People love to sit there and go, look, if you want to be a a gay, purple-haired, gauged out, tranny, whatever, in your backyard with a fire extinguisher, doing methamphetamine. I don't agree with any of that, but I will die for your right to do that.
I won't.
I won't. No, we will not. No, we will not.
No.
If you take the LGBTQIA plus, XYZ, if you
HIV.
as a whole, they're 100% anti-gun.
Right.
They oppose all of our political agenda items. As a political entity, these people are full-blown enemies of everything that we care about. And I would say 99.9% of every gun owner or who supports the organizations that we work with. So we're not going to sit here and advocate for these people to have guns, because they are, like Chris said, they are homicidal by nature. They are killing people. They are killing Christians. They killed Charlie Kirk. Right. They killed the kids in the Tennessee school. And I'm not going to sit here and say, nah, it's all good, because by their nature, they are committing far more crimes, than anybody else is on this topic.
Because if it's up to them, they have a bullet for me and for each of my 9 kids.
Right.
Yeah. We're not in the business of arming our enemies. That's
good.
This is a Christian country. That's how it was formed. God's law reigns supreme. And in a godly society, a Klinger on the show MASH pretended to be trans to get psych discharged, to get out of the military and sent home. It wasn't that long ago. Everyone could say these people are deranged, they have problems, and to give them a firearm and to pretend that we're all equal, that this is some kind of a big beta democracy, is what's led to all these people being shot in these churches. And so a lot of the beta organizations right now, gun rights groups, are out there saying what Ben said. Well, national groups. We'll defend your right to have these guns. We're not stupid, and we're not. This is not a democracy. We have a republic for a reason. And this is getting people killed. And I'd also add that we have, and I'd be careful how I phrase this, but there are contacts really high up in the government right now who are asking for input from organizations like ours on what should the president do, what can the president do, because even people who are not necessarily Christian can see this is killing us. Yeah. And so there's a lot of discussion happening right now at the federal level, what can be done. And we're here for it.
Cool. Well said. All right, we're going to go to our last commercial break. Before we do, I just want to remind you guys again and make an additional announcement. So we can't go too long today because we've got to be able to break and get dinner, and then we're going to an event tonight. And so we got to get ready for that. So I don't want to go too much longer. So I think what we're going to do for today is we're going to do super chats exclusively. All right. So we're giving you one last chance as we go to this commercial break. If you want to send in a super chat, then we will answer all the super chats. Then we're going to cut the stream. We'll be done, and we'll pick back up next week. If you're new to the channel, do us a favor, subscribe on YouTube and click the bell. If you subscribe, and that's all you do, YouTube takes that as like, oh, this is a channel that you would like to never see any piece of content from them ever again. I don't know why YouTube interprets it that way, but for whatever reason they do. Subscribing means absolutely nothing to YouTube, so you have to subscribe and actually click the bell. And then on X, if you want to follow me on X, the handle is @RightResponseM, as in ministries, @RightResponseM. I appreciate your follow over there. And then we're also on Apple and Spotify and all the podcast platforms that you might like. Our schedule for our live stream is 3 times a week. So we live stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 p.m. Central Time. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 p.m. Central Time. And so this is going to be it for this week. We'll pick back up, Lord willing, with Monday at 3 p.m. Central Time. The last little bit for today will be our third segment. We're going to keep it brief, dealing with super chats only. Here's our last commercial break. When it comes to your financial future, are you planning forward or backwards from your desired results? What type of financial culture do you want to create for your family and for your children's children? We are not called to be wise as doves. Therefore, simpleton planning simply won't cut it. Joe Garrissey helps families develop and implement a long-term culture of excellent financial management. He starts with your goals, your tithing plan, your retirement, and the legacy that you want to build for your generations. And then he works backwards to build a real actionable plan to get your family on track. Now, many of my personal friends have benefited from the financial wisdom of Joe Garrissey that he shared for their specific situations. Do you want to work with someone who strives for alpha with your investing, hates taxes, and brokers insurance? Start planning smart. Call Joe Garrissey at 615-767-2555. Again, that's 615-767-2555. Or you can find him by going to backwardsplanningfinancial.nm.com. Again, that's backwardsplanningfinancial.in as in Nancy, M as in ministries.com. Want to protect the digital devices in your home? Victory by Covenant Eyes provides a clear view into the digital behavior of those in your household. Its screen accountability technology scans each screen, analyzing it for explicit content. It blocks concerning images and generates a report that is sent to an accountability partner. Covenant Eyes is offering our listeners 30 days free when you sign up using our promo code. Whether you're concerned about online safety for yourself, your kids, or even your workplace, Covenant Eyes has your back with its powerful screen accountability and filtering services. Covenant Eyes provides peace of mind by monitoring and reporting digital activity in a way that's both effective and respectful of privacy. Plus, the Victory app offers free resources to guide your understanding of why people get stuck in pornography and what you can do to help them. Try it out for an entire month absolutely free using our code. So don't wait. Take advantage of this exclusive offer and start protecting yourself, your family, and the people around you today. Visit the link in the show notes and use promo code RRM for 30 days free. All right, here we go. So first super chat is not a question, but a comment. We appreciate those. Dapper Dan, he's a regular. We appreciate you. Dan, thank you for your support. $5. He said 58 Democrats just voted against a resolution condemning Charlie Kirk's assassination. 3 of those Democrats are white. I just say facts. So true, King. We appreciate it. All right, this is BJJ Wins Again. BJJ Wins Again. He's a regular supporter of the show. We know him in person. He was at our conference this last year. Got to spend some time with him. Great guy. He writes in a question. It's a $5 super chat. We appreciate that. BJJ Wins Again. Thank you. He asked, any advice, I'm going to give this to the Door Brothers, any advice for using these tactics, the practical things, the money, the list, the people, at a city and county level?
Yeah, I'll start on this one. The beauty about starting at the city and council level is that the apparatus is so much smaller. For example, in a state legislature, they have caucus staff, they have lawyers, they have teams that surround these legislators. So when we're trying to put pressure on them, they have access to reinforcement. So if we're bringing the pressure, they have insulation from that to some degree. When it comes to city and county level stuff, that stuff falls away very quickly. And the numbers that are needed in order to affect some kind of change that you're looking for drop dramatically. I don't know, the number one thing I would say to anybody starting at the county or city level is start. Show up, because I've been to many county commissioner meetings where there is not one single member of the public there. Right. So if this is a hot issue to your church, this is where churches have such an outsized role at the local level. It's amazing. Right. It's a tremendous resource.
Yeah, because you can just, at a local level, there may only be 20 people there, and your church can roll up with like 50.
Yeah.
And just
or there might be 5 people there or 0
right.
people there. Right. And so just show up and start. And you'd be surprised. Again, this goes back to the analogy that, you know, all politicians are basically like evil lords. No, they're not. That was good. These people, especially at the county commissioner level or the city level, sometimes they will actually listen to your input. Mm-hmm. So you don't really need that many people. So you start to mobilize your friends and go up there, go down there, wherever it is, and start to talk to them. And you might find that you get much better results than you were anticipating, and it's just simply because you showed up. Victory goes to those who show up. So many times the Christian world gets way too bogged down in what's happening online than to know that so much of what affects their daily life is being decided at that city council meeting that night that nobody is even there to attend. So,
well, then you said they might be more willing to listen. That is true. Also, if they won't listen,
Yes.
they're much more likely to bend to pressure. These people don't. These people don't have a full-time legislative aide who's sitting there fielding phone calls and just giving a tally to their boss. You know, these are as small ball bureaucrats as you can possibly find. So the ability to pressure these people is infinitely easier if they refuse to listen to reason than it is going after a state representative or a state senator. I remember we were fighting a little city in Minnesota was trying to outlaw gun stores. They were trying to regulate them out, zone them out of existence. And there was 2 or 3 stores there in particular that were being that were going to be forced to shut down or relocate. And of course, we used our state level group, to do that work, but we simply funneled phone calls to the city council's office, and when it came time for the hearing, they said, "Well, this is the quote from the mayor." He said, "Well, we have learned the power of social media, and we will be tabling this proposal indefinitely." And that was just the end of it. And we've done that many, many, many times in many states. And so, like Chris said, get your church together, get your people together, and show up. Show up,
Well said.
I think my brief add on my last comment of that would just be pick good issues. It's important to pick good issues because you can really mobilize a lot more people with issues that are relevant to the day, that are in the news at the moment. Pick issues that are not just your favorite topic, perhaps, but that are able to really mobilize lots of people and get a lot of interest in people, because it's easier to keep it going and not flame out yourself if you have a lot of energy behind the issue you're engaged in.
Well said. This comes from Mostly Peaceful Merch. He's a regular follower. We appreciate that. $20. Thank you. He said, glad to see the doors on my favorite live stream. Thank you for fighting the cowards on both sides of the aisle.
I'm gonna give a shout out to Mostly Peaceful Merch because he was the one who put us in contact with you in the first place. So thank you very much, my friend, for doing this. This is all because of you.
Awesome. Thanks. We appreciate that. Next one is $5 from Walker Nicely. Walker Nicely, I think, is the name. Okay, he said, as a big head covering guy, why has the practice fell away within the church today? I'm for head coverings, but what do you think? Do you think that head coverings should still be a thing? And if so, should it be daily? So I'll say my position. I wrote the foreword for Dale Partridge's book on head coverings. I agree with probably 95% of what he said. I maintain some distinctions. So my wife, I have 5 kids, 4 of them are girls. My wife and my 4 daughters, they had head cover on the Lord's Day for public worship, prayer and prophecy. So when Paul says, the woman should cover her head, when she's praying or prophesying, I don't take that. A lot of the libtards and egalitarian feminists, they take that to say, oh, see, women are prophesying and praying in the church, and so they take that to say, behind the pulpit in isolation, this all the men and all the women in the church are sitting down silent while a woman is standing forward, prophesying, and that very clearly would directly contradict what Paul says in 1 Timothy chapter 2, where he says, I do not permit a woman to, have authority or teach or exercise authority over a man. She must remain silent. So I take 1 Corinthians 14, or 1 Corinthians, is it 14 or 11? It's 14, I believe, in terms of a woman prophesying. 14 or 11, it's a little bit of both. 14 is where it says it's shameful for a woman to speak in church. All right. And then 11 is where we find the Lord's Supper and head coverings. I take all that combined to Paul. What he's essentially saying is that women do prophesy and pray in church, but they do so collectively, corporately. That really, you could say the entire church service on the Lord's Day is prayer and prophecy. That's what it is. The preached word is lowercase p prophecy. Our singing to the Lord, we're praying to the Lord in song. So it's all prayer and prophecy. So I take that as Paul saying, this is what church is. Church is prayer and prophecy, and the whole church, the whole congregation, is not merely sitting back spectating, but is participating in that. And so, yes, 2 or 3 should prophesy, one at a time. So for the sake of order, that's also 1 Corinthians 14 in terms of everyone sitting down and listening. But there is a corporate mechanism where we all pray and prophesy together. And where do we do that? I think we do that throughout the church service in the corporate prayers and also in our worship through song, through hymns and psalms and spiritual songs. So I think that it's not saying that a woman is going to prophesy out loud while everyone else is silent listening to her in an authoritative manner. Nor is she going to come up and pray out loud while everybody is silent. But I think corporately they're going to be doing that. So prayer and prophecy during these moments, the woman should have her head covered. And I think those moments are basically incorporate the entire church service. So the whole church service on the Lord's Day is prayer and prophecy corporately. And I think what Paul is ultimately saying when you take 1 Corinthians 14 and cross-reference with 1 Corinthians 11 is that women should cover at church. So whether they cover on a Monday afternoon, or evening after dinner during family worship, I'm going to leave that to heads of households to determine. I'll speak for myself. I could be wrong. You can put that on my tombstone. Joel, I could be wrong. But, so I could be wrong. But for my convictions and where I'm at in my study on the issue, my wife and my daughters, they cover their head on the Lord's Day at church. But for those of you who feel like anytime your wife or daughters are praying, whether it be family worship in the home, or if you feel like better safe than sorry, I'd like my wife to, or my daughters to cover their head. This is what I know for sure. And even R.C. Sproul, who was fairly moderate. I love R.C. Sproul, but so I don't say that as an insult. I'm just saying he was not that extreme. R.C. Sproul, fairly moderate. His wife, Vesta Sproul, still covers her head at church to this day. But when he was making the argument, he said this. He said, this is what I know. He said, it's a little complex. It's some of the exegesis can be tough. He said, but what I know for sure is this. There might be a command for a woman to cover her head. But I know that there is certainly not a prohibition from a woman covering her head. So if my wife and daughters cover their head, and turns out they didn't have to do that. Well, there was no verse in the Bible say that a woman, thou shalt not cover your head. But there might be some verses in the Bible that say they should. And so I would just take that, going a little bit stronger than Sproul. I would say, no, the Bible does actually say that a woman should cover her head in worship. But I would take that might clause and I would apply that to the home. So if you want to say better safe than sorry with, Tuesday evening family worship in the home, wife and daughters, we're going to cover our head for family worship. No harm, no foul. There's certainly nothing in the scripture that forbids it, and there might be something in the scripture that commands it. For me, I feel fairly convicted that the scripture does at least command prayer and prophecy when the saints, the excellent ones, and all the earth gathered together on the day that Christ was risen from the dead for church. So that's where I'm at. Do you guys, I don't know if head coverings is one of my things. I don't know if it's really a thing for you guys, if you want to pipe in.
Not our expertise.
No, my wife has beautiful hair. My 6 girls do too, and that's their head covering.
All right, I get it. That's it. Yeah, that's the Doug Wilson approach.
I'll just say this. I actually don't have a very strong position on it one way or the other, but my wife actually feels very strongly about wearing a head covering. And I know some people like to do the whole kind of Amish, or not the whole wrap.
Some of them are like it's smaller and pretty, and actually really pretty, like feminine and like like lace kind of thing. And then some of them is like we're getting a little Muslim-y on that one, But
I meant to say Muslim. I said Amish. They're a little similar sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, my wife does the little one like that, and she felt strongly about it, and I didn't act. Maybe it's a little egalitarian of me, but
who's running your
democracy?
House?
Well, like you said, there's
I think that's a good approach. Like, so if you feel like my conscience is clear, well, I think read into it and make sure your conscience is really clear and not just you're just advocating like I'm just not going to read anything on it because I don't want to know because I don't want to be responsible. Don't do that. So read a little bit on it. But then if your conscience is clear, I'm not going to split a church over it. I have a pretty convicted position, but in my church, about half the women cover it and half of them don't. And the ones who don't, none of them is like saying, yeah, my pastor when he's preaching, he's glaring at me the entire time. So like our church, we're simply not going to divide over this issue. We think it matters. I think it matters, but we're not going to divide over it. But I will say this, that if you really have studied the issue and you're like, nope, the hair is a covering. I disagree. No disrespect. I disagree. But at least you've read the issue and you have a conviction. But if you're like, I really don't know, and your wife is saying, can I cover? Again, I would say no verse that says she can't.
Right.
So
Well,
it's weird to me. Like I've had a couple guys even in the CREC who have like publicly forbidden head covering in their church. And so I'm like, look, I understand if you don't want to mandate it.
Wow.
But if you're like in a Reformed church as a pastor, CREC, or, this is strictly hypothetical. Let's say you're the head of the CREC. It's not hypothetical. This literally happened. And you're forbidding head covering. That to me, that's crazy. So the approach that you took, I think is and I'm sure for you too, it's like, we think the hair is a covering, but I guarantee you.
I've just never actually looked
I guarantee you, if there were women
in
in your church who were head covering, you're not going to be you're not
Right.
going to be taking them off.
Oh.
Like
I'm in
that's
the
crazy.
CREC.
Right, exactly. But that was weird for me. So hopefully that helps to answer the question. We'll move on from that just because the Door Brothers are here, and I want to make sure that we focus on the things that they really are experts in. Somebody else, give me a break. And Chris, would you read Truth Prevails? And this is real quick. This is $50 from Truth Prevails. That's a generous super chat. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is a name I know. Jonathan Storms here. Shout out to my dad, Jason Storms. What would you recommend for a young man with minor political experience, campaign for Trump, lobbying legislators, door knocking, etc.? That sounds minor, a little more than minor there, to develop deeper experience in the political world? Oh, that's a great question.
What do you guys think?
Coming from a Storms, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
real quick, tell me about the Storms. I don't know.
Oh, they're a very, very active political family. They've multi-generational political family involved in a lot of things, pro-life space, most especially. What's his name? Jonathan. I think the key thing is, one thing is, we have to get beyond not beyond, but in addition to the things that are done, on kind of the
ministry
the ministry stuff, the street stuff, at a certain point, to inflict pain on legislators, you have to build a structure, and it can be big, it can be small. They all begin small,
right?
But at a certain point, you have to organize in a very mechanical way, a very sometimes very boring way. You have to establish an organization. You have to figure out a way to raise money. You have to rally more people to your cause. And so you've done,
the people are showing up, but then also it sounds like a lot of it is like having the people on standby, right? Standing down, standing by, Mr. President. But like having those people ready to blast the phone and the emails to just make the politician pull his hair out and push the button when we need him to push the button. Is that a big part
the structure has to be built and it has to be maintained. People will go and find somebody else if you're not actively like helping them know what's going on, how can I be involved, and then we give them specific mechanical tools to actually like communicate directly to their lawmakers. So those emails that they send in go right to their state senator's inbox, and so we give them the tools that they need to not just be informed, but to be weaponized in a good way for the righteous cause that we're engaged in. And so, at a certain point, you'll have to begin to build an organization. Jonathan, locally is fine; it can grow. I mean, our stuff is state for the most part, but it can be local. It can then become state down the road to better. Not better, but to more accurately channel that fire on the lawmakers who desperately need to hear from people in their districts.
Right. Awesome.
And to that, I would just say, a person has to know what their life looks like, what their responsibilities are, what their gifts are. Do you have a wife and a bunch of kids? Are you 50? Are you 20? Is this something that so you take Jonathan Storms here. He's done a bunch of sort of he said lobbying legislators, door knocking, done some campaigning. So he's done kind of that level of political activism. By now you might know what it is you want to do with your life. Do you want to do this kind of thing permanently? And this is what we do. It's what we do every single day. I've been doing this for 10 years. Both of my brothers, I'm doing this for 15 years, 16, 17, 18 years, and so it's because we have built the infrastructure that we were able to go, okay, we're not going to weekend warrior our politics. We're going to do, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it as effectively as possible. We're going to win as much as possible. And so I would say, find out if this is the kind of thing you want to do on a permanent basis. And then, I would encourage young men like him reach out to us. and this goes for a lot of folks who are probably watching this, if you want to learn the tools, if you want to learn the tricks of the trade, shall we say, we want to better equip going forward the Reformed world. I'm friends with a lot of the Reformed Baptists. If you want to be effective in politics, if you want to do more than just 20 minutes a week on political activism, we would like to maybe bring more people into the fold. Reach out to us and see where if there's a place.
Real quick, where do they reach out?
Give our X handles.
Yeah, give your X handles.
Yeah, Real Aaron Door. That's my X handle.
Okay.
Real Aaron Door.
All right.
The number 2A Doorbro, DORRBRO.
Okay.
And just Ben, letter C, as in Charlie, Door. Okay. That's it, Ben C. Door.
And Door is DORR.
That's
correct.
Right.
Correct.
The German version.
Okay.
Yeah,
there you go.
So reach out to eat any one of us, the three of us,
Yeah.
and we'll see what
Great.
we can do.
Okay, let's do this last question because I think, Chris, part of your answer will probably play into this because it's a similar question. Let's make this the last of the day so that we can go ahead and cut the stream. This has been super helpful, guys. Thank you so much for being on the show with me. We got 2 super chats, each for $10, so $20 from Stryker. Stryker, you're a regular guy. We appreciate you following the ministry and supporting us. It means a lot. He said, what do you think about organizing using a private membership association with local Christians to take over a school board or a village council, city council, and move on to other towns in my county? So what do you think about small organization, private membership association with local Christians, take over a school board and maybe a city council, and then moving over and like kind of town by town to try to take the whole county? What do you think?
I mean, with all of these answers, I might have a different answer than Chris, different than Aaron. I personally say go for it. Go for it. But you need the same thing: lists, money, and people. You don't need as big a list. You don't need as much money, perhaps not as many people. But if you're going to run to be, on the town council, well, there's going to be people in your ward or people in your city who hate you for it. I've known a bunch of people who got into the city council, weren't able to do anything very effective. And the moment there was a re-election campaign, they had no lists of people, that locals, neighbors who supported them, who they had articulated their positions to. They had no money for the re-election campaign, and they didn't have people to turn out and to stand up for them, on social media, to go out and vote for them. So you need the list, you need the money, you need the people. If you're going to try to one-man band politics, even little politics like a city council versus a state representative versus a congressional campaign, you need to have. And again, on a small thing like that, it could just be, maybe you're a part of one of the bigger churches in the area, but you have to make sure those people are stepping out of those 4 walls and actually getting involved in what's going on in their own community.
And I think if there's anything we've erred on during this whole conversation is that we've talked about list, money, and people in the context of the political application in trying to accomplish policy or put pressure on a politician, but it is also very effective to be used during the election season. So we bring all of that to bear to protect our good guys and to punish the bad guys, whether it's a Republican primary or a general election. But the lists and money and people are very much a political thing and a election season thing. So and they work for both.
There's so much more we could say. But
Anything from you, Aaron?
I would just tell Stryker, your church is the natural place to begin. But honestly, these days, more and more of our supporters are folks who they haven't walked away from the church, but they're fed up with the pious crap they've got for decades in some cases in their church. And a lot of our best supporters these days are folks who are either they're looking for a new church or they're not sure where to find a decent church. And sometimes these folks who I think sometimes Christians are willing to kind of look down on because they're not quite from the same cloth that we are. These people are fantastic.
Yeah,
these are the ones who elected Trump.
Right.
These are the ones who gave power back to conservative ideas. If they knew them all or not, doesn't even matter. They're out there, and they want to be used for a good fight too. So don't forget to weaponize those people in all the right ways for your local fights in particular.
Amen. Our part of the reason our ministry has grown significantly just in the last few months is because I pretty much had an epiphany about 6 months to a year ago where I realized, I'm Reformed, and I'm always going to be Reformed. The Reformed tradition is my home. But the Reformed ghetto is not.
Yeah,
it's not going to be my home. I'm not going to spend the next 40 years trying to compete with James White, or G3 for the largest conference within.
Those people need to be kicked out and the neighborhood's taken back over.
Right. So Reformed tradition, that's my home. And I love it. I really love it.
You bet.
Reformed ghetto, not so much. And as I've stepped out, and I've stopped being as insufferable as I was. If you go back and watch some of the early videos, it's just the 5 solos on repeat over and over and over again. And so as I've stopped being, such an autistic, reformed, insufferable, pastor, all of a sudden there's a lot of guys who they really the whole time they were willing to link arms, and I just kind of was too good for them.
Yeah.
And I've had to apologize for that. And some of these people, we disagree on some of the theology, but they really are born again Christians. They love the Lord Jesus Christ, and they're great. They're salt of the earth. And if it wasn't for them, dude, I'm talking like this is. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic or emotional, but you're talking about people who politically have galvanized together and are literally saving our children.
You bet.
If it was just the Reformed, my kids are doomed.
Yes.
We would never win an
100%.
election. My kids would grow up without any future.
Yes.
The country's doomed. We're over. So it's like when I think of who saved my kids, it wasn't the PCA.
Yep.
It wasn't.
They're still studying that.
It was exactly.
They're still studying.
They're still doing a study committee, to see whether or not my kids are worth saving. That's the PCA. But so no, the Reformed world did not save my kids. The broader evangelical church did, which that broader evangelical church includes a lot of mega churches that I would never attend. But the people are sweet. They're precious. They're salt of the earth, and praise God for them. Go ahead.
And I would just round it out again with what Chris said there. It's some of our, I would say many of our best supporters, ardent patriots. They see there's a almost a simplicity of this is right and this is wrong. And I don't know all the Bible verses. I don't know all the ways. I just know that when somebody's doing this thing, it's wrong.
Yep.
And these people then have way more grit.
Yep.
They're way more willing to fight. They're way more willing to go out on a limb and go after these people. And the evangelical world hangs back and goes, I don't feel comfortable with that.
Right,
Can I pray for my legislator? So it takes all kinds. This is it's important.
Broad coalitions. What I try to tell people all the time is you have to have ripples in a lake, or a target, rings. You have to have categories. We have to be able, Christians are notoriously bad at this, but I believe by the grace of God, one day we could walk and chew gum at the same time. We've got to be able to have categories. And so I kind of use, language of all right, this is my family, this is my brotherhood, right? These are my friends, so brothers, friends. And then there's this broader circle that you cannot win politically without, which I think of brothers, friends, and then co-belligerents. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to co-belligerents, these are guys who, with the culture war, the political war, these are the guys who we cannot win without. So it's a broad coalition. It's broad coalition. That's because you're compromising. No, I'm not making these guys elders in my church.
Right.
But I am absolutely linking arms with them culturally and politically.
You bet.
These are co-belligerents in war. And here's the thing: if I don't partner with them now in culture and political war, then I'm going to end up having to partner with them in a literal war. That's all politics is. Politics is war. Absolutely. It's just war without the blood. We can have a bloodless war and win in the realm of politics, or we will have a bloody war. And I don't want that. Yes. So it's you bet you, I will happily and humbly link arms with Catholics and go into the voting booth.
Yes.
100%. Because if I don't, I'm going to be linking arms with Catholics in a literal trench. All the metaphors are gone now. In a literal trench with literal guns fighting a literal war, because the left wants us dead.
Yes.
They want us dead. So we can win. Politics is warfare without the bullets. So we can win a bloodless war by being co-belligerents now, or we're going to have to be co-belligerents with a bloody war, and I'd like to not get there. And I think one of the ways that you can do that without feeling like you're compromising and feeling guilty and have a clear conscience before the Lord is just think in categories. Brothers, friends, co-belligerents. And that's helped me tremendously. Let's go ahead and end the string. We got to 2,000 people watching live. That's perfect number. Thank you guys for tuning in. Door Brothers, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank
and
you
coming
very
all
much
the way
for
out
having
here.
us.
It's been a blessing.
Loved it.
And we will see you guys, Lord willing, on Monday at 3 p.m. Central Time.